Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. This is Jan Moray, and I'm here with my co-host, Mona Duncan. And today our topic is, Won't You Be My Friend? Take some lessons from Mr. Rogers and Dr. Glasser. So, Mona, why don't you kick it off for us?
Yes, I have not seen the movie with The Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, but I have read or watched several of the documentaries about Mr. Rogers. And I know when I go, I need to take a big box of Kleenex because it's going to be very touching and very. So I thought we would just talk about Mr. Rogers. And there was an article in the paper not too long ago about was we needing, as a worldwide view, was we needing to have a Mr. Rogers resurgent. And it was looking at the fact that trust is something that we as human beings, it's a texture of life. It's a natural empowerment. That if we didn't trust, we wouldn't make any transactions with anyone, whether it was buying gas or, anything, because we have to have an element of trust there, or we just wouldn't have any exchange at all.
Yeah.
And was talking about the fact that we need that trust, and that with all of some of the like big box stores or big banks or big this or big that, it just automatically kind of puts into your mindset that it can't be trusted because it's too big.
Oh.
And that with all those big ones coming together, then you begin to distrust. And it's saying that the Gen Xers and the millennials of all people are less trustworthy. Not that they are trustworthy, they don't have the ability to trust. That they're just skeptical about most everything. And how maybe the whole world just needs a resurgence of Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, yeah.
And his,
yeah. Well, the whole thing about being kind to people and treating people respectfully and trusting, I mean, you just feel so good when you're around people that treat you that way. But there is a lot of mistrust this day and age. You have to prove you're trustworthy before anyone trusts you, at least from a business standpoint. And it is off-putting, to use one of Mona's words.
And not only from a business standpoint, but even from your neighbors.
Right.
And Tom Hanks, who plays Mr. Rogers, he was asked, what was some of the difficult things to do, or what was the most encouraging things to do, and so forth like that. And he said one of them, the hardest part for him was slowing down. Because, Mr. Rogers, he just came out and he filled those quiet spaces. It was okay for there not to be any conversation. It was okay to just walk around and look at what was this. And it was okay. And it was really difficult for him to not try to fill all of that space with something that was meaningful. And that he realized that Mr. Rogers was teaching, primarily for children, and realizing that it didn't matter if they didn't know, because we were just going to talk about it, and you'll know a little bit of something whenever we're through talking about it. Not here to educate, not here to change. We're just here to be friends. We're just here to be together. And that one of the things that just exuded from Mr. Rogers was that everyone in the world has inherent value.
Mm-hmm.
And so true that we do, and that we all are lovable.
We are.
And how do we get the message sometimes that we're not lovable? And how do we give that message to others, that they're not lovable? And to always listen more than you speak.
Right.
And it's in that listening that more that we speak. And then I like to look at it too about listening to what the other person is saying before we speak. And sometimes if we really listen to ourselves as to what we're saying, rather than take what we're saying to ourselves as a criticism, and look and say, what am I saying to me?
Yeah.
And to begin to look at that we have inherent worth and value, that we are loved, And that as we listen more than we speak, and as we listen to understand, not only can we understand others, but maybe we can understand ourselves a little bit better.
Right, right.
So Mr. Rogers also was looking at using your platform for good. That whatever, if you have any exposure whatsoever, use it to be as much good, as much encouragement, as much help as we possibly can. And to always remember that the messages that we give to the children is equally a message for the adult.
Yes, right, right. Because we're all children inside. We never grow out of that. That's all. There's always a part of us that is that child that we were when we were young. And
Right.
so we just can't forget that. Don't assume that it's not important, because it is.
Yeah. And just with that slow pace.
Yeah, that I would have a problem with too. I don't do anything slowly. I am just fast, fast, fast. Let's get it done. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's hurry up. Let's go. Yeah, I have a lot of trouble. I would have a lot of trouble slowing down as well. I have to tell myself, okay, calm down. Take a minute, do a little breathing. You don't have to get all this stuff done. Yeah.
And the thing of it is really in the long run, you can get more stuff done.
Because you're not so stressed from doing it, trying to get everything done.
It's one of those paradoxes.
Mm-hmm.
And just be neighborly, be kind of that paradox. And of course, Dr. Glasser talked a lot about friendships, and he said that friendship, you just treat the whole world as though you're your friend. And even if, your children, you treat them as a friend, or you have that type of relationship that you have with your best friend, that you're not criticizing, you're not putting down, You're not, because you want them to be your friend.
Right. You don't want to hurt them. You don't want them to go away. Yeah.
Right.
But we know that our family is here to stay, and so we're a little more open. Say a little bit more what's on our mind.
Right. And also have a tendency to not really listen to what the other person is saying, to not really listen with listening to understand. It's more listening to rebut.
Right.
Listening to have
right. And not really listening, but trying to figure out what am I going to say next. Where you're each having your own little conversation back and forth, but you're not really listening to the other person. You're just trying to find, well, what can I say that shows that I did something like they did, or something similar.
Yeah. And so sometimes in that friendship, well, I know, someone was saying one time that the golden rule is to treat others the way you want to be treated. And that they said, well, let's just go on up to a platinum rule, is to treat others the way they want to be treated.
Yeah.
And I can see a lot of reasoning behind that. Yet at the same time, it may be taking away from the simplicity of a friendship.
To try to figure out what they want.
Yeah, kind of mind reading and all this kind of stuff. It's just
yeah, because you really don't know what they want. You just have an idea of what you think they want, but it may not be right at all.
Right. And with Mr. Rogers, he addressed there was no taboo subjects for him.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was, I know this little boy asked him one time about he didn't know what to do with his MAD.
Okay.
And he had some real legitimate reasons, because he was apparently in a very abusive family.
Okay.
And all he could do was address the child that was right there in front of him, and to talking about the fact that he was loved, and that he had worth and value, and that sometimes to just sit with it and let that MAD pass through.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can, and rather than being having hard feelings toward the others. It kind of goes back to the fact that the trust, if that trust is broken, it's really hard to begin to trust again.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And that if you, Mr. Rogers, the person right there then, proved to be trustworthy, it kind of builds strength within the other person that, okay, maybe I can trust again.
Right.
Maybe I can.
Yeah. Whenever I hear about trust, it reminds me of something that happened to me when I was in high school. And I never, ever forget this. Obviously not, because high school was over 40 years ago. But it was biology class, and none of us really respected the teacher. And everybody in the class gave him a hard time. And so, he assigned the questions at the end of the chapter, for homework all the time. And so instead of doing the homework, I would just take the previous week's questions and change the title, and he would come around the room and look at what we'd done, and I would put out the same questions every week. And I was bragging to somebody about that. And so they did it too, but they got caught, and the teacher went called him out on it. And he said, well, Jan does the same thing. And the teacher turned to me and he said, no, Jan would not do that. Jan is a good student, a conscientious good student. And of course I knew, I had a feeling that he knew that guy was probably telling the truth, but he was showing such trust in me that it made such an impact, that somebody would say they trusted you without even asking you, well, did you do the homework? And, was this kid right? That after that, I always did the homework and I always had the new work. But it's just amazing what trust in a person, how much it changes that person when they know that you trust them. And that's one thing why trust is so big for me. And I'll put a little plug for a new product that'll be coming out very soon, called Living Life with Choice Theory, that has a lot of stories from several of the members of the organization. And Mona has a story in there, and I have one, and mine is about trust, because it has made such an impact on me. And I showed the trust in my children when I was raising them. I just told them it was more important to me that you tell me what is going on than to lie, so that you wouldn't get in trouble. I said, I promise you won't get in trouble if you tell me what you did, but I want to know what you did.
Yeah. Mr. Rogers said there's a real close relationship between truth and trust.
Yeah.
Because if you don't trust, it's hard to tell the truth.
It is. When you're afraid of somebody getting upset at you, or criticizing you, it's hard to be open and to let them know what's going on. And I mean, I can remember my son especially one time said, now, Mom, remember, you always told us that you'd rather us be truthful and we're not going to get in trouble. And I said, that's right. What happened? Tell me.
Right. Have to set that up beforehand. That
That's right.
you're
He's going to remind me.
That you are trustworthy when I tell you the truth.
That's right.
And so that same thing, like I say, it was a way of building a trust and a truth relationship within that child.
Yeah.
And I had the respect there of knowing that, my kid, what could I do to help ward off those offending blows? But then also, back to what I was talking about a minute ago, whenever we may gripe at ourselves and fuss at ourselves and we're criticizing ourselves, if we can look at the fact that we are a person of infinite worth and value, and we have inherent worth, and that we can get, what request am I making of myself rather than criticizing me?
Mm-hmm.
That then we can begin to trust who we are.
Yeah.
And we can walk out, we can live out that truth. The ancient enneagram, that you can learn about personalities and so forth. And if you go the right direction, it leads to really maturity and health. But all too often, it's so easy to go the other direction, which is criticizing and complaining and griping about, whether that is with our children or our co-workers or ourselves. But we don't do that with a friend.
No, that's right.
And so it's making a friend with yourself of yourself. And it's not to excuse yourself, it's to get honest, because again, always, no matter what that relationship is, it's going to be solidified together by both truth and trust. And if we cannot speak words that we are trustworthy of, then no one will ever believe us.
Yeah.
And it's only speaking words that are truthful for where we are at our point in life, because we're always changing. Things are always happening. Things are always different. We see things from a different perspective, from another point of view. And so back to the golden rule in the friendship, the golden rule, if we obeyed the golden rule, this world would be a whole much better place.
Oh, absolutely.
My life would forget about making it more stellar in some other way that
Right.
talks about looking in and seeing where someone else is coming from, that maybe they don't even know where they're coming from. And so it's just being open,
just being kind to people and nice to people, not even worrying about what they want, but just being a good person. I mean, nothing good happens from getting upset at somebody and criticizing them and complaining, because they are automatically going to get defensive.
Right. So to be a good neighbor, what does it mean to be a good neighbor? To
help each other out and to be concerned for people. If you notice something odd, maybe bringing it up to them and asking if everything's okay, showing concern.
Yeah. One of the things that Mr. Rogers said, that he realized that his programming was not the normal programming even then, and definitely not the normal programming from today, but that he wanted to create a community, and he wanted every person that watched to have a shared sense of value and a shared sense of purpose. And he considered that space between that TV and the person watching it, that it was holy ground. And I find that so interesting. And I've been thinking about, wow, is this holy ground? Whether it's on the TV or whether it's on the YouTube or whether it's on Facebook or whatever it is, those things that we're putting out there in between, from where is that holy ground, or is it part of the discord that we're seeing in the world? Is it part of the problem, and are we adding to it, or are we helping to sow peace and love and kindness?
Well, that's something to think about anytime you post something, anytime you say something. How is this being seen, and what am I doing to the friendship? What am I doing to anybody who's looking at it? Or if I respond to somebody who posts something that I don't really like.
Right, whether it's one-on-one, in person, whether it's written, whether it's spoken, right, whatever it is. To use civil discord, to have reasonable judgment, to have some kind of an evidence-based something to go on, not just a airy-fairy thought that happens to come to your mind at the moment.
Right.
Looking at it, it's drawing on our shared humanity. That, we've all made mistakes, but if we just hold someone out as being exemplary, even the person that we may want to put on a pedestal is not making a mistake, the thing of it is, we're going to all fall off.
Right, at some point. Absolutely. And to know that that's just human nature, and that happens, and it doesn't make that person a bad person. It's like, okay, this thing happened, so where do we go from here? How do we move forward?
Right. And it's realizing that we can have different opinions, but that doesn't mean that we're not trustworthy. It doesn't mean that it's not legitimate. It doesn't mean that there's not an element of truth in it. It is looking at it, and it's listening for understanding, and seeing how that we can have that discourse in a civil way and leave holding each other in high regard, whether we agree with one another or not.
Yeah.
It is
And that's so
agreeing.
hard to do. I mean, I get it. It's really hard to be respectful towards somebody who has a completely different view from what you have. But to understand that we're all just people. We all have our different experiences that have shaped our beliefs. And it doesn't make your belief wrong and my belief right. They're just different.
And in shaping that belief, I mean, it included positives, negatives. It includes fun and
Yeah,
sickness. It
yeah,
includes everything.
yeah.
I mean, everything. In one is the whole, and what the whole is, it's made up of all the random parts of everything else. And it's just realizing that we do have a shared humanity, and just receiving and being civil.
Yeah.
And
I don't know why this popped in my head, but in light of the coronavirus and everything, we're getting ready for this trip, and I'm trying to take precautions and stuff. And I go to the grocery store to get things that I need, and all the shelves, of any kind of sanitary stuff is empty, and you're like, really? People go in and they hoard things, and it's like, I'm only concerned about me. I'm not really thinking about anybody else who might need this stuff. And the store has to put a sign up, no more than so many items can you buy at one time, and stuff. But we're always thinking of ourselves, and let me protect myself first, and that gets us into trouble instead of trying to help other people out and trying to leave some for the next person.
And there is a truth to that, to protect yourself, because then so that you can help others. But it's not, so I've got mine and now you don't get any.
That's right.
It's all together so that we can. And I was watching one of the doctors, the CBS, I believe it was, the doctor for all of, anyway, was talking about the coronavirus and so forth, and how that, to still basically remember humanity.
Yeah.
And to not have it be a anti-Asian prejudice.
Right.
I mean, it's one of those things. And on Sunday morning, the TV program Sunday Morning, which Garland and I always watch that in the afternoon, tape it and watch it together. And anyway, it was so interesting. It was talking back in the early 1800s, whenever there was a breakout, and I mean, so many people died. It was much worse population-wise than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I mean, there was a lot of sorrow and a lot of death and a lot of devastation, but we as the people overcame it.
Right.
Because we have that ability and that creativity within us, and we can and we do overcome so many things. And rather than just living in fear, I mean, there's a difference in being cautious and in living in fear.
Right. Because if you live in fear, you don't do anything. You're paralyzed. And so, is that the way you want to live? Do you want to live a life where you don't go out, you don't do things and learn about the rest of the world and learn about what else is going on? You just stay in your own little house and don't see anybody and don't have contact with people. I mean, there's always a risk when we go out and meet somebody and shake their hand, give them a hug, whatever it is. There's always a risk of getting something, but pretty soon we have to do a little risk management. So how important is that friendship? I need that friendship too. I need to be able to be with people, to feel like I belong somewhere. I mean, that is, to close myself up in my house is just as damaging to me as maybe contacting the virus. So you've got to weigh the different options and say, what is my risk, and what am I really trying to do? What's my purpose in life? And how do I want to enjoy my life? And then make a decision, and make sure you're careful along the way.
Okay, well, that's a good note to bring us to a close on. Maybe give one more quote from Martin Luther King. He said, "If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great
Right,
way."
right, right. And small thing, I mean, there's nothing wrong with small things. I mean, small things add up very quickly. And I think that's a great way to close. So thanks, everybody. This is our last live broadcast this month. We will be back in April with a whole new slate of Greet the Week. But if you go to the wglasser.com website, you can have access to these broadcasts. And there will be some broadcasts posted the next 3 weeks even though we're not doing them live. So I hope to see you in April. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.